Hi everyone, it's Eli. You know how sometimes you stumble upon something truly game-changing in healthcare? Well, I found it. KinetiSense. This cutting-edge motion capture technology is transforming movement, assessment, and recovery. Imagine getting instant AI-driven insights without any wearables on your patient. That's right, no ping pong balls needed. Just pure, accurate data. Perfect for boosting athletic performance, pinpointing imbalances, and refining rehab. Top professionals worldwide trust KinetiSense to maximize productivity and results. Check out our partner page to learn more. Experience the revolution in movement. Welcome to Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and More, the podcast that gives you a viewpoint in sports medicine that can't be found anywhere else. I'm your host, Eli Hallak, and we have a fantastic show ahead of us today. So, let's get started. Welcome to Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and More. Today, we have a new and dear friend, Vanessa Shannon, CEO and founder of Optimize Consulting. She has her Ph.D. in performance psychology and works quite often with athletes and other clients in dealing with performance and the psychology of it throughout their profession. Welcome today, Vanessa. How you doing?
I'm great, Eli. Thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I know we've been trying to arrange this for a couple months now, so I'm super excited to have you on. We have a colleague that put us together, Tiff Hobb. Thank you, Tiff, as always. Really looking forward to this. Again, thank you. So we are really in a unique profession. And when I say we, I mean you. We are in, well, performance psychology. And a lot of people might sit there and go, huh? I get it. I understand it. As an athletic trainer, what I do daily, dealing with these student athletes. But would love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, educationally, what got you where you're at now, and how you use your expertise to help and or educate others.
Thanks so much. A long story of how I got into the field, but the short of it is I was an athlete my entire life, played college volleyball at Rice University. And while I was there, actually lost one of my best friends to bacterial meningitis. He was one of my best friends from high school.
Oh my God.
Almost failed out of college and had to kind of right the ship. I had gone in pre-med with a psychology and sports medicine double major. And then, a mentor of mine said those grades don't get you into med school, might want to find something different to do. And simultaneously, I was in a coaching baseball class, and we had a gentleman who worked with some of the pitchers at the Atlanta Braves at the time come speak to my class. And I thought that sounds really interesting and a way that I could combine kind of the psychology and the sport again. So I didn't really know what I was doing, but had some great people along the way that pointed me in the right direction. I did a master's degree at Kansas State University. My major advisor there would argue that it was in exercise psychology and behavioral health, and then a PhD in education with a specialization of performance psychology from the University of Tennessee. And then spent the first 8 years of my career actually in academia, teaching research service, and then kind of decided I wanted to be doing what I was teaching other people to do. So I made a jump into applied work. And I ended up at IMG Academy first. I spent 2 years there, and then I spent 7 years in the athletic department at the University of Louisville, 2 years at the Cincinnati Reds, and then decided to start my own business at almost 50 years old. So that's been fun.
Well, that's very interesting. So you started at the high school level, and not very common, but IMG is a very uncommon and unique situation that many of us at the high school level know. So that's kind of neat because I've never heard of any individual with your kind of background working directly with high school athletes for a school situation. Wow. How did that
Yeah.
happen?
Well, IMG probably has now about 10 of me. Not me, but 10
Because it
mental
takes
conditioning coaches.
10 people to take the place of you, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I misspoke there, but thank you for that. No, they've grown their program over time. So they have something at IMG called the Athletic and Personal Development kind of piece of the student athlete experience. And it focuses on speed, leadership, nutrition, mental conditioning, and vision training. And so I came upon a role there sort of in a funny way because I went down there for the summer while I was still teaching at West Virginia University, and a job opened up, a full-time role, and so I decided to stay. But it is a bit unique to have that resource at the high school level. I actually work with one of the all-girls high schools here in Louisville. I have subcontract with them. So there are some people around the country who are doing that type of contract work. And then there are the occasional full-time roles within high schools. But most of the full-time roles are going to be at college professional athletics.
That is just wow. The fact that they have that kind of assistance as needed. But again,
Mhm.
very unique situation. They are looking at an entirely different clientele. I don't know how else to put it. Not just as students, but they're really very unique situation. So
That's fair. That's
yeah,
fair.
no,
Yeah.
very unique. And you mentioned Louisville, you mentioned the Reds. Out of those experiences, how did it come to be that you went from a high school to a college to the pros, and then finding or being the not co-founder, the founder and CEO of Optimized Consulting? How did it kind of weave its way?
So while I was at IMG Academy, the woman who left to take a different position, whose position I took, I took her place. She already had an existing contract with one of the teams at the University of Louisville. And so I fulfilled that contract that year, and then other sports at U of L were interested. And I joke, but it's kind of the honest truth, right? Because it is a business, college athletics. But ultimately, the administrators, I think, realized it would be less expensive to hire someone full time than it would to be to pay IMG's daily rate for a contractor. So I ended up at U of L in large part because of the coaches really championing the need, as well as at the time, she's still there as the director of mental health, Kate O'Brien. Really, she's a licensed clinical social worker taking care of the mental health piece, but really championed the idea that the student athletes and coaches needed someone to provide the performance side of the equation. And then I spent 7 years there. I loved the work that I did, and then just got a phone call from the director of health and performance at the Cincinnati Reds at the time, and asked me if I was interested in a role, and felt like it was the right time to try something new. So I worked for the Reds for 2 seasons. And as I say to people, baseball is life, but it is not life for me. So the honest truth is my husband is a Division I men's lacrosse coach, and it is like the worst two schedules you can put together to try and have a life and a marriage. I was gone for 40 days of his season at spring training. So they didn't renew my contract. And when they didn't, I had some other full-time opportunities, but I decided to try and take a jump and do private consulting.
Yeah, you can pretty much take the baseball out, Major League Baseball, and just insert any athletics at that point, that one statement.
That's
Yes,
right.
it doesn't coincide well with life, marriage, husbands, wives, children. Check, 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 check. And it doesn't matter if it's high school, college, pros, consulting. Yeah, no, it all sucks.
No.
And I know my wife would agree with that after
Yeah.
27 years of yelling at me. I mean, guiding me. I didn't say yelling, I said guiding. Well, that's kind of cool. And it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, that this kind of came from a network, somebody that knew you, someone that knew of you and reached out and grabbed the opportunity to bring you in. Or did I misunderstand that?
You mean at the University of Louisville?
Yes.
Yeah, to be honest, IMG was a part of my network. I'll tell the quick story, but the short
Please.
version of the long story is we had a doctoral student who's wonderful. He's now Dr. Jesse Michelle and is a fantastic performance psychology professional. He got a summer staff position with IMG Academy for just 3 months. And then 2 weeks later was offered a full-time position with the military. And so as his mentors and advisors at WVU, we told him, you got to take the full-time job.
Jump
So
ship,
he
boy,
said,
jump ship.
yeah. But my friends who were down at IMG, one of my best friends from graduate school, has worked there since she left Tennessee. She picked up the phone and called me and said, well, are you going to come down and take that position instead? And ironically, I was considering making the leap from the academy into applied work. And so I said yes. She did it as a joke, but I asked my chair at the time, and he said, well, you teach remotely in the summer, so go down and see what happens. So the connection at IMG was through my network, and then U of L happened because of the connection to IMG at the time, but also, ironically, a couple of athletic trainers that I knew at Louisville.
And the reason I bring it up every episode, someone's network makes a difference. And we really try to hammer that home, especially for the up and coming athletic trainers, young professionals of any profession. Your network is everything. It's not who you know, it's who knows you. And so I just had to inquire because I thought that was the connection, but wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that's actually exactly right. And it goes even farther to just push on the network impact. Part of the reason that I got connected to the Reds was because one of the mental performance coaches at the Reds at the time had been my mentee at IMG when I was at IMG. So we kind of came full circle together,
That's
which was
so
really fun.
cool.
Yeah,
That's
but
so cool.
I love that idea that you shared, the quote that you shared. It's so true. It absolutely is who knows you. And anytime I get to talk to students or young professionals in the field, I always challenge them. Like, I am because of my network. I mean, 100%.
Mentors and network have made me who I am. There's no doubt about it.
Very
So,
much.
yep. And I thank them every opportunity I can, which I'll be honest is probably not enough, but whenever I think about it, I make sure to shout out and send a little note. Or we were just talking about a mentor earlier this week who I haven't seen since I graduated college. But if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair being an athletic trainer and talking on a podcast. I don't know if that's a good part or a bad part right there, but thank you, Mike and Dave up at Humboldt State University when they were still there. Sorry, tangent. That was bad. Let's get back. So,
Okay.
if I understand correctly, and again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm married, so I'm always wrong. Um, Multidisciplinary approach. So let me use that phrase. I would presume, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, that because you interact with athletes, not just clients, that sometimes there's a multidisciplinary, let me try again, multidisciplinary approach that really might help. Maybe tying in the certified athletic trainer, the physical therapist, with whatever you're dealing for that client, that athlete. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, 100%. That has definitely been one of the benefits when I was in full-time roles, was to be able to provide that kind of multifaceted support or care for student athletes or athletes. And have really thoroughly enjoyed throughout my career working with sports medicine staff, sports performance staff, nutrition, sports dietitians, mental health. I think that is something I was really proud to be a part of at the University of Louisville. It was in existence at IMG. It was being built at Louisville when I got there, and I got to help kind of continue to build it out with the addition of performance psychology, and then became maybe only the second or third person to do that with the Reds. So a really, I would say, a valuable piece throughout my career. And now on my own as kind of an independent contractor, I've been able to kind of, again, to your point, use my network to be able to have those referrals and still at times provide that kind of multifaceted or multidisciplinary approach to care. And I think sometimes we think of it only in terms of the injured athlete. and how all of those pieces are really necessary for recovery and return to play. But I've been privileged to be a part of a lot of places that have taken a very proactive approach to it and seen it necessary for all athletes.
I really agree with both parts of that last statement because there is a injury approach, no doubt about it, and there's also a preventative approach.
Mhm.
We've talked about it multiple times in our sports medicine facility when we know there's a big game coming up and the baseball playoffs hinge on this win and all the pressure on that pitcher and mentally what they're dealing with and trying to calm them down, make sure, buddy, it's a game, have fun, at a much different level. And then the psychology, the mental task of taking someone who has just broken their arm, broken their leg, and they identify as an athlete, and now they
Mhm.
can't be one for a while. I know we were talking beforehand, and you said you actually have a background in the psychology of injury. And you said that, and my eyes perked, my ears perked up. Can you talk a little about that and how you see that knowledge helping somebody in the clinical setting?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of definitely one of my passion areas. I was an injured athlete in college, and at the time suffered what would be a non-career ending injury now, but then was a bit of a career ending injury for me. And as a consequence, kind of started to think, even at that time, how disruptive that injury and the end of my career was to me. Became pretty interested and passionate about doing work in that space as I moved throughout my career. So when I was at West Virginia, I was lucky enough to have a colleague, Dr. Damian Clement, whose research background was in the psychology of injury, and we did some work together in that space. When I was at IMG, I was part of the cohort of individuals who kind of oversaw the return to play protocol for our injured athletes. And then at the University of Louisville and the Reds, we really tried our best again to have that multidisciplinary approach to injured athletes. There's so much to the psychology of injury, and there are so many great resources. But if we think about someone like yourself, anybody in sports medicine, right? Athletic trainers, physical therapists, you have so much workload already on you when you are supporting an injured athlete. And then to ask you also to support the kind of psychosocial components of the injury recovery and rehabilitation and return to play process is a lot. So yeah, I've enjoyed again being part of some multidisciplinary teams that are able to leverage that kind of collective approach, and I think make sure that athletes have a better experience of a very challenging and difficult experience.
And I really think the layperson that's, I wouldn't say non athletic, but doesn't deal with the day to day stress, especially today. I mean, nowadays, there's so much more stress placed on the athletes. I don't think they understand the real mental, I don't want to say anguish or
Mhm.
angst, but sometimes that's what it is for these young men, young women, whomever are competing, just how taxing it is mentally on them until they sit down with one of us and starts talking. And I know you start, I used to make a joke. I'm kind of like Sam from Cheers. I'm the bartender. They tell me everything. And that's not always good.
Right.
But at the same time, then we can, when necessary and appropriate, pass them along in a very professional manner to someone like yourself that could help a lot better than we can in some situations.
Very true. Yeah, I mean the literature has always suggested that individuals going through the rehabilitation process, when you ask them who provides the greatest amount of social support, your teammates, your coaches, or your athletic trainer or sports medicine staff, it's sports medicine staff. And so I would probably argue with you. I don't even know if it's that you're not as capable. I think it's ultimately a bandwidth issue, right? You're already providing so much support in a
Yeah, that's
way.
probably that's
Um,
probably a better way to put it. Bandwidth, definitely.
Yeah, and I very much appreciate what you said earlier about individuals external of athletics, and I even remember it happening with COVID when college athletics got shut down, and this became kind of this banter of like, why is everybody so hysterical about it? It's just sports. And I remember smirking when a couple of people said that to me because, to your point about the anguish that athletes go through when they are injured and maybe out for a season or it ends their career, we often use the Kubler-Ross model of grief to apply to that experience because it's a very similar loss that someone goes through, the loss of their season, the loss of their identity, the loss of their career, however they might perceive that loss.
So true. I never thought of it that way, looking at what we went through with the athletes in the model of grief. And that's wow. We really did. That's very true.
We
I'll
did.
be damned. I knew it and I didn't. I learned something today. Awesome. Wow. So far, loving this, absolutely loving this. With your background and what we've seen since you brought it up, 2020,
Mhm.
you know, mental health, wellness, performance has basically stepped forward out of the shadows and into, well, the limelight, unfortunately.
Mm.
And at least that's what I've seen. I'm curious if you've seen the same thing. And at the same time, how has it evolved since 2020?
Yeah, it's kind of a catch 22 because you use the term unfortunately, but at the same time, we could kind of say necessarily, right? It was needed,
Totally,
and
totally.
maybe always has been needed, but that just revealed it to us how great the need was. Definitely, there has been a significant shift in terms of the support that is being provided across the athletic landscape and the trickle down effect from Olympic level, national level, international stage to professional athletics and then into college has always occurred, and then we're starting to see it, I think, trickle down into high school athletics. The NCAA has done a significantly greater amount of work in terms of gathering information about resources that should be provided to student athletes in terms of their mental health, mental wellness, even mental performance. So you're right, it was an unfortunate thing that had to happen, but what it did for the greater good ends up being helpful to student athletes and athletes across the board. And I think the other thing that you were referencing in there too was that, we saw more of it because people were more willing to speak out about their experiences with it. And because we were a bit of a captive audience during COVID, it was kind of there and we couldn't look away. So it's, I think, as well been helpful in the sense that it's helped destigmatize resources, asking for help, seeking help. There still is certainly a stigma, but I definitely think we have experienced some destigmatization in the last 5 years.
I couldn't agree with you more. And when we see some of these big names, I mean, the one that sticks out to probably me the most, and probably a few others, Simone Biles
Mhm.
at the Olympics, the twisties,
Mhm.
and going through that. And at first, everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, quite a few people, well, you're at the Olympics, suck it up and go. Well, they just don't understand. So,
Mhm.
in hearing from her directly when she started doing interviews and explaining it to the lay people or the people that didn't understand, I think she broke barriers on that night. I really do. And the destigmatization of mental wellness, I think, was really improved on that day. I can't think of another way to put it.
I think that's the exact way to put it. I think you're exactly right. I mean, on a global stage with how many bazillions of viewers, and I, even doing what I do, I had some friends, God love them all, who were courageous enough to text me about it and say things like, I mean, shouldn't she just like, it's the Olympics, like, can't she just kind of suck it up? So they got some lessons in the twisties and the
I
yips
bet they did.
and and a little bit of remedial neuroscience and things like that. But definitely, I think it did help destigmatize it greatly. Her willingness to be open and vulnerable and share not only what she was going through, but the way that she has gotten through it, and the support that she's accessed, her resources that she's accessed.
And unfortunately, not everybody has the access to those resources, but there is access to resources, period. You just have to be a proponent for yourself sometimes and find them. Or at the high school setting, mom or dad, medical staff, athletic trainers. We're fortunate at our school, we work very closely with our mental wellness office and our mental wellness on campus guy. He is it an MF? Marriage and family counseling therapist. So we connect whenever necessary, which probably isn't enough, but he's fantastic. When we need something and we've identified somebody that really needs assistance, he's on it. And not every school can say that, but I'm very fortunate. We're very fortunate as a staff to have somebody on site to help.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would say, we you look across the country and we definitely have a lack of mental health professionals. It's a space where there's a significant demand and less resources and support, and everyone's stretched thin.
Amen.
But to your point, find someone to talk to. And for individuals who may be out there who may work in settings where they don't have full-time resources, having a network of referrals in your community, people who are willing to do a number of pro bono hours to provide support to individuals who, maybe don't have the financial means to access that resource or can bill their insurance, or whatever it is. So I think there's a lot of creative ways to provide those resources, even if you can't directly provide those resources in house.
Take note, everybody. There's always a way.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, always a way. And that's the key. Find it, give it to them, help them out, make sure that everybody gets, well, that's always our goal, is to help people get what they need so they can get better. That's it. No
Very
matter
much.
what that get better is.
That's right.
Yep. Yep. So you said one of your passions is definitely the background, or with your background is psychology of injury. Do you have any other passions that are really in there, whether they were research or clinical? Just kind of curious.
I mean, I've always gravitated towards teams. I think I was a team sport athlete. And so that's, when you do a PhD, then you have these areas of expertise based on your dissertation or the number of courses you took in the topic. And by the way, for those of you, because you can't see me, I have a big air quotes around expertise because I don't even really know what that means.
You
But
did do the air quotes. I saw it.
yeah. But I have always gravitated towards teams. I do work with a lot of individual clients, and I work with athletes and a lot of individuals in the athletic population, athletes, coaches, physical therapists, athletic trainers, but I also work with people in business, human services, other aspects of healthcare, et cetera. So I do work with individuals, but I think I'm passionate about the psychology of teams and how to maximize the potential collective performance and potential of a group of individuals. That's always fascinated me, and it's always been something that I've kind of leaned towards.
So I got to tell just a quick anecdote. Going back to my college days, which, it was only 1 or 2, 3 decades ago, but we had somebody in our program that was taking one of our athletic training sports medicine classes because it was necessary. And we were talking to her. I'm like, what is your major? She's like, well, I kind of have a very unique major. And this is back in 1992, 93-ish. I want to go into sports psychology. So similar to what you do. Said, well, then why are you in this class? And she looked at me and said, because there is no definitive program at this time anywhere in the US. So I'm getting my degree, my undergraduate degree in kinesiology, physical education. And then I'm going to go do a master's in, I believe it was psychology at the time. And my goal is to work with a team to enhance their wellness so they become better at what they do. And at that point, I looked at her, huh, what the hell are you talking about? Was what I was thinking. But then I looked at her, I'm like, why a team? Her comment was, if I remember correctly, because you can see from beginning of the season to the end of the season a cohesiveness. If everything works out well and works correctly, they come together, they work as a unit, and who knows, maybe I can tweak the New England Patriots to become winners again. And I every now and then I think back, how many Super Bowls has that team won at this point? I wonder if she got there, huh? So just
She may have gotten there.
she may have got there. She may have been successful. I never found out because I don't remember her name.
Um, that's a great story. So just to clarify too, Eli, I what I do is sports psychology.
Please do. Thank
It
you.
is well, I think yeah, it's a good thing for listeners to maybe understand, but the field has definitely evolved from sports psychology to sport and exercise psychology to sport and exercise and performance psychology to now just kind of generally performance psychology. So the first kind of movement out of sport and exercise and athletic performance, physical maximal potential combined with psychological performance was in tactical populations. And so a lot of people don't know this,
Now,
but
when
a
you say
lot of,
tactical, please make sure
yeah.
the listener knows what you
So
mean.
the US military is actually at one point, I shouldn't say I know this for certain, but at one point they were the largest employers of people like me in the country. They designed a program called the Master Resiliency Program, MR2, and would hire individuals like myself to work with and educate soldiers pre-combat to improve their resiliency. And so, as kind of people in the field started moving into these spaces, these other performance environments external of sport, now the larger, more global term, because it has more breadth, is performance psychology.
There we
And
go.
for anyone listening who's interested, there are now several undergraduate programs across the country, only a couple, but there are obviously plenty of master's programs, plenty of doctoral programs in sport and exercise psychology. If you have an interest in performance psychology and that pathway, the Association of Applied Sports Psychology is our one of our national or international, I guess, professional organizations. And they actually put out a directory of graduate programs every year. So you can go to that directory and you can look at all of the graduate programs in sport and exercise and performance psychology. Little plug for the field.
One more time, can you say the name of the governing body that you just mentioned?
Yes, it is the Association of Applied Sports Psychology.
Let's bring that up. Let's look at it. There they are.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, lots of resources. Find it, visit the Career Center, find a CMPC program, join today. National Symposium, October 15th. Just in time, we can still go up in Montreal. That's always a good place to go. Yeah, everybody, make sure you check that out. It's at Applied Sport Psych, PSYCH.org, or just type it in and I'm sure you'll find it. Always a good resource. If you happen to know off the top of your head, great. If you don't, I understand. Can you mention any of those undergrad programs?
So West Virginia University has one, and Western Washington has one. Those are the two that I'm familiar with.
Okay.
But it is very rare, very
Oh,
uncommon. And for anyone who's interested in getting in the field, because I get this, I'll sometimes occasionally get somebody who reaches out to me via my website and they say, my child's in high school and they're interested in doing this and they were wondering if there are any colleges in this space. You do not obviously have to have an undergraduate degree. There are plenty of master's programs, and being somebody who worked in a master's and doctoral program for 5 years at WVU, I can attest to the fact that the vast majority of our applicants had degrees, undergraduate degrees in either psychology or kinesiology or health and human performance or exercise and sports science, whatever it was.
all right, there you go. So undergrad in something similar or affiliated, but not necessarily in that specialty.
Correct.
That makes a lot of sense. And at the same time, it makes you more better rounded for potentially taking care of your clients and your patients and or patients. Oh yeah, University of Western. Oh, there we go. Sorry, it's flashing info now on my other screen. Love it. I better close that or I'll keep looking. Elevate your knowledge, ignite your curiosity, and compete with the best minds at events hosted by the American Academic Competition Institute. AACI's sports medicine competitions feature practical exercises, challenging quizzes, specialty tests, and keynote speakers that foster knowledge and social engagement in healthcare and sports medicine. Go to aacitest.org for more information on upcoming regional and national competitions. Sign up for the ultimate intellectual showdown. I'm learning so much. Thank you. This is absolutely fantastic. Bringing back some memories of stuff that I hate to say I dealt with, but I wondered, yeah, when I did this injury, when I did that injury, if I had somebody other than myself and talking into the mirror back and forth, how much better would I have felt? And I'm sure we all go through that. And going to the mindset of a client or an injured athlete, what is to you probably the most important aspect to get through to that person?
I love that question. And I was hoping you would ask something similar to it, because that answer to that question would be the same answer to the question, what is the biggest lesson you've learned in your career? I think the biggest thing in order to get through, and actually, I'll probably say two things. One is to remind them that optimal performance for anyone in any performance environments requires four things: some type of physical capacity, some type of technical or performance related skill, a tactical understanding, and psychological skills. So I think one of the first things we can do is normalize the psychological skills piece of things. You are not someone who needs to do it, and that person over there doesn't need to do it, right? We all have our individual makeups and our individual needs, but we're all using psychological skills when we perform optimally, whether it's on the court, in the pool, or whether it's in the athletic training room or the physical therapy clinic if we're an injured athlete. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing in order to get through is to remember, and this is a good friend and colleague of mine, Justin Sua, who said at a conference one time, we have to remember, are we trying to help them feel better or get better? And sometimes we're doing both, but typically one needs to precede the other. And that was a big interest of mine always, in the psychology of injury piece, was this kind of psychological readiness of return to play. Do they feel better, right? Before we can actually help them get better. And I think when we're talking specifically with injured athletes and we think about the practitioners and professionals supporting them, I know in my space, there was always a sense of urgency. Like, we have to help them get better as soon as possible, right? What do we always talk about is the commodity, availability, right? But what we do as a consequence is we sometimes then push them through the stages of psychological readiness more quickly than maybe they're ready to go through them, which we all know can be unhelpful at the end, because we know that there are some protective factors when it comes to injury, and we also know that there are some antecedents, things like stress, right? So that was a bit long-winded, but if I could kind of just summarize it, I would say remembering the four legs on the chair, and that they're not different because they need to work in this space. And then secondly, helping them feel better as much as you help them get better.
Oh, I love that. And that's so true. Sometimes we get focused on one, not the other, the feel better, not the get better, or the get better, not the feel better. And it's really cohesive. It comes together. It's there. You can't have one without the other. You really can't.
No.
And sometimes we lose track of that because maybe there's a big game coming up. Maybe there's a championship. Maybe there's the World Series.
That's right.
Sorry, go Dodgers. They're not playing the Reds this week, I swear. Anyway, sorry, they are. And with that in mind, though, you got to focus. Just because they quote unquote feel better, and I'm using my air quotes, doesn't mean they're getting better.
Right.
And
Very much.
that could be such a difference in their mindset going in. Wow. And that could lead to failure. And then they have to deal with failure and cope with failure. And then you're really earning your money at that
That's
point.
right.
And so am I. Oh my God. Which, actually, let me ask you about that. So when we get into those situations, especially more at the higher level. So, and when I say higher level, I'm talking college, Major League Baseball, professionals, they're getting paid. You can even look at Simone Biles again. Coping with failure. What are some practical kind of strategies that you recommend or that could be recommended for a listener that is trying to cope with failure? Either that's something very public or something that's more private. We all have to cope. What are some of the practical strategies you'd recommend?
I think, the first thing, and I think it's the first thing everybody tries, but it's difficult. So that's why there's a second and a third thing. But certainly normalizing it, we don't want to normalize it so that we numb a person to it and then they expect failure all the time. But I think having a clear understanding, a clear definition of what success actually looks like is really important. And oftentimes people kind of look at me like, duh, but how often do we go into situations and perfect is our definition of success, right? So any type of failure is catastrophic. I think number one, normalize failure, understand, expect the expected. What should success look like accordingly, right? I think the second thing is, and most people in my field, and I should mention that some people in my field are like me, they are performance trained, and other people in my field are clinically trained. So they are licensed psychologists. And obviously, licensed psychologists might be working with athletes on clinical concerns. But either way, if we're working with an athlete on a performance related concern or any individual dealing with failure in a high performance, high stakes, high consequence situation, we're probably going to take one of two approaches: a cognitive behavioral approach or a acceptance based approach. So the cognitive behavioral approach would be, a bit about like, what are you saying to yourself and how is that making you feel and how is that influencing your experience of performance? So again, if my expectation is perfect and I am an all or nothing thinker, there's a set of 10 cognitive distortions that were identified in the Feeling Good Handbook, which is actually an old cognitive behavioral book. But if I'm an all or nothing thinker where perfect is successful and nothing else is failure, then that's going to make me feel like a failure. It's going to probably make me nervous and anxious every time there's a performance environment, and my performance is going to be affected accordingly. So, one, we have to normalize failure, have a clear definition. Two, we have to be aware of how we talk to ourselves about failure. And I think three is having an ability to recover from the failure is, again, kind of closing the loop back to accepting it, right? Okay, it didn't go how I wanted this time. If I accept it, then it allows me the opportunity to examine it and do something about it, right? I was talking to a group of baseball players, and very commonly in the sport of baseball, as many other sports, pitchers will talk about having a bad outing. But the problem with describing an outing as bad is you kill your curiosity. So it's bad and it sounds like there's nothing you can do about it. It's permanent. But if we say, okay, that wasn't my best outing, it wasn't the outing I wanted to have, then it encourages our curiosity of, well, why wasn't it my best outing? What could I do to make it a better outing, et cetera, et cetera. So I think one, normalize it, clearly define success. Two, kind of what are you thinking and saying to yourself about failure? And three, making sure that when you experience failure, you accept responsibility for what you contributed to it, you let go of what you didn't contribute to it, and you learn from it.
I got to be honest, you're saying these things. I'm going, yeah, yeah, yeah. And now I'm thinking about Ted Lasso episodes. So, and I think we joked about it on the episode with Tiff Hobbs, and it really has gotten to the point where we can talk about this. You go back prior to 2020, definitely go back further. This is not something you talk about. I had a bad outing. That's it. You go. But to analyze it, figure out how to control it, how to, or not control it, but take hold of it, embrace it and go, okay, buddy, let's make you better next time. And I'm having flashes of different Ted Lasso episodes. I loved how they not normalized, but brought it into the conversation and really let people know, yeah, this is kind of athletics now. It really is at any level. And we see that I think in the long run, it's going to I don't want to just say help athletics, but
Hmm.
help people in general.
Very much. Yeah. 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 I love Ted Lasso. It was a great show. So many good things about it. As you were talking there, it reminded me I have a lot of great resources, can share lots of books, TED Talks, etc. But Do Hard Things is a book by Steve Magnus that comes up in this conversation. He talks about, and I don't want to misquote it, but I believe the terms he uses are resilient strength and callous strength. And that flip that kind of happened was, callous strength was run at the wall until you burst it apart and run through it. Resilient strength is figure out that there might be a way around or under or over the wall, instead of kind of banging your head against it. And I think you're right. I think that was a bit of the shift that has happened over the last 5 years that's been accompanied by the willingness to talk about these things, access resources, etc.
Fantastic. You said that book's called Do Hard Things by whom?
Steve Magnus.
Steve. Jotting it down. I like that. Resources are awesome. They make life a little easier because we don't know everything, depending on the day, that is. So, what is, if you don't mind me asking, your favorite aspect of what you do?
Oh man, there's
Tough
a
one, I
lot.
know.
Yeah, it's a tough one because it sounds so, I don't know what the word is. It sounds so,
It's a setup question. It's too
it's a
easy.
setup
There
question.
is
Well,
there is
well,
no easy answer.
it sounds so silly to say, I love what I do, but I really do enjoy what I do. I'm very lucky and blessed. My parents always raised me, love what you do, and when you stop loving it, do something else.
Amen.
Um, and I've been very lucky to be able to continue to do what I do because I enjoy it so much. What I do at its core is really education and application, right? If I were to fill in a blank, I am an educator. I teach people about the psychology of performance. I help them learn about themselves. It's a lot of self awareness and self regulation. So I love so many things about my job. I think probably what I enjoy most is when somebody kind of has a moment that clicks, right? Where something that they've been working on and something that they've been working through, they get to the other side of that. And it's always really fulfilling for me to see that happen for the athlete. A lot of times people will say, oh, well, you contributed so much to that. I'll get a text message from a parent thanking me for all that I did for their athlete, or from an athlete thanking me for all that I did for them. And I love that. I really appreciate the gratitude, but I don't really perceive that I had much to do with it. I shared information. That's the easy part. The hard part is actually integrating the information into regulatory strategies, routines, tools, habits, skills, and doing them often enough that they influence your performance. But I think those kind of light bulb moments where people kind of get over the hump, so to speak, are what I enjoy the most.
I call those aha moments myself. So
That's
clicking,
right.
yeah,
Yep.
love it, love it. That's really, and like you said, if you love what you do, it's not working really. It's just loving what you do and helping others. And I mean, it is healthcare. When you look at it, it is an education process, and we do what we do because we like helping others.
That's right.
That's it. You don't get into this for the wrong reasons. You got to be here to help and educating them. And I love you saying that you're educating your teacher. You are teaching them, just like I teach in the classroom. You just happen to be in an office. Doesn't matter. Whatever it takes to help that person. Ooh, I'm going to bring up a really nasty word right now, just for an opinion, since I got you here, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So it's two words that I utterly disdain ever since I got my cell phone. And it is something that just drove me nuts at having daughters. Social media.
Uh,
Yeah. Okay. There it is. There it is. Love it. Okay. Thank you.
yeah. I mean, I'm on it. I use
You
it.
gotta be. I mean, if you're not on it, you're in trouble. But
Yes, yes.
yeah,
So when I was at IMG, which was now 12 years ago, I was part of their NFL Combine program, and we had a branding and media company come in and do some training with the guys who came down there to do their Combine workouts and train for the Combine. And I remember us asking them in the meeting ahead of time with the company before they went in to meet with the athletes, what are you going to say about social media? What are your thoughts on, removing yourself? And they basically taught me an important lesson that we all now know is it's not going away. So what is important is learning how to use it safely and effectively. And I think it honestly goes beyond social media. I think it even goes to our smartphones, because I think we can use those in an unsafe and ineffective way as well. And most of the time for our athletes, especially across the continuum, younger athletes, because of the FOMO aspect of things, fear of missing out, professional athletes because of travel and their schedules, and they're in a hotel room by themselves and there's nothing else to do. So now you're on your phone and you're swiping and you're watching video, TikTok and social media and this and that and the other. I just think it's really challenging. So I think it's ultimately about developing a healthy relationship with it. One of the biggest tools, and I used it myself, I'm always admitting I do not practice what I preach perfectly. But when I started my own business and was in charge of my own schedule entirely, I started looking at, my husband actually encouraged me to start looking at my social media use on my phone. And I was astounded at how often I was looking at social media. So I think just using that metric and then almost setting a challenge goal for yourself to just reduce it, right? You don't have to be no, but just reduce it. And the other thing I'll share regarding smartphones in general is I recently read a statistic from a research company who did a study on smartphone use that showed that the average human being touches, swipes, or interacts with their cell phone 2,617 times a day. So you might be thinking, well, I feel like I only do it 2,000. That must mean there's somebody who's doing it
There's hope.
3,000.
Oh my God.
Either way, problematic.
Well, I hope my wife doesn't listen to this part of this episode, or I'm really in trouble. Yeah. I've
Yeah.
actually gotten to the point where I try to set it as far away as possible when I get home. So I have to actually want it, which
Such a
is
good
bad,
idea.
or something pings and I know it's coming, and then I'll walk over to it. And
That's,
then the
yeah.
goal is to get rid of it as quickly as possible, but it's never quickly enough.
But that's still a good strategy, right? You're trying.
I'm
The
trying.
one, yeah,
Honey, if you're listening, I'm trying, I swear.
the one thing I'll tell people not to do that we recently did by accident, we thought we were real savvy and we got puppies. One of them chewed on the remote, and then we realized our cell phones, we could download a remote onto our cell phones. Bad idea, because then if you're watching TV, and then you are required to use your cell phone to interact with your TV, and then you don't have to do what you do. Get up, walk over to it,
Yep.
right? So there's more of that like feeling of, oh, I might as well interact with it.
And then you're
So
double
yeah,
dipping because you're watching TV and you're playing with your phone at the
yes,
same time.
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't do that for an hour or so last night. I have no comment. I plead the fifth, especially if my wife is listening. I will be in trouble. This has been a fantastic episode. And I'm sure you, like I, have a couple other things to do today. So I don't want to take too much of your time. But if you could give some advice to those people out there that are thinking about going into your area of expertise, what is something you would say to Vanessa Shannon of
Mhm.
20, 30 years ago? So really young, still thinking about what you're going to do. What advice would you give?
I think I would give her two pieces of advice. One would be something to do, and the other would be something to consider. The first would be the something to do is I would find professionals in the field and I would reach out to five of them and I would ask them for 10, 15 minutes of their time, a virtual coffee or something like that, and ask them about their path, ask them about their experience and learn from them. And I would say five instead of one because you're going to get five unique and different experiences. And then you can utilize that information as well as the information that you've gotten and that you have yourself to make decisions about your path. I think the second thing I would tell them to consider is the fact that there's plenty of performance environments out there, right? I think most people who go, at least during my generation, I would argue most of us who went into the field wanted to work in college athletics or professional athletics. That was kind of the end game dream goal. I feel like in athletics, no matter what your role is, that's where everyone's trying to get to. But there are so many performance environments out there and so many individuals who need the resources. So, that's great to have as a goal, but don't consider, if you don't end up in one of those roles because they are finite, don't consider that a failure, because you're still doing a wonderful thing and providing a wonderful service.
I couldn't argue with that last one at all, especially from my career standpoint, sports medicine, athletic training. It's always, I want to be NFL, I want to be MLB, I want to be NBA, NHL, whatever it is. And you know what? I don't want to take care of rich babies. I'm good. I'm good. They're just big egos with lots of money. Although if you work at a private high school, you might have the same situation like I do. So
No.
I find it rewarding to be at the high school level. So I think to add on top of that, find what is the most rewarding for you. It might not be, it might not be where you think.
In fact, when I was at IMG Academy, I thought to myself, this is not my wheelhouse. High schoolers are not it. I don't connect as well with them. I want to work in college athletics. That's where I'll be most comfortable. That's where I think I can do the most good. And though I loved working in college athletics and enjoyed my time working in professional athletics and still have college and professional athletes that I work with, I really enjoy working with high school athletes. There's so much impact that you can have there.
Definitely couldn't agree more. And it sounds like you probably have had an impact at every level you've gone to. This has really been fun. This has been a great episode. I appreciate all the pearls of wisdom you kicked out to so many of our listeners and myself. Thank you for educating me. Thank you for being the teacher today. I love the quote, virtual coffee. I've never heard that one. I'm going to steal it if you don't mind.
Of course. It's not mine. I don't even remember where I got it from, but steal it.
Technically, I had a coffee brought in because I was dying. So yeah, this is virtual coffee too. I love it. Vanessa, thank you so much for being on this episode today. This was really useful and real pertinent to, well, today's life, period. End of story. Yeah.
Awesome.
So
thank you so much, Eli. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure meeting you and talking to you. Thank you for being on Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and More. We'll see you next time. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Want to make sure you hear every episode? Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to our podcast. Don't forget to share our podcast with your colleagues, family, and friends. Your support will help more people find and enjoy our content. Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and More is directed by Eli Hallak. It is produced by Gabriel Hallak. Our theme music is by Coma Studios via Pixabay. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely those of the contributors. Want to know more about us? Visit us at wrapituppodcast.com. That's with one P, wrapituppodcast.com. Wrap It Up Sports Medicine and More is a production of Hallak Consulting, LLC.